Okay, Wickerson Studios. This is Grasshopper for Rhino, ABCs. I covered a little bit in how I like to set up my Rhino window and have it ready to go, but when I'm actually working in Grasshopper, I do what I call is naked Grasshopper, which means it's not dependent on any 3DM file. But for now, I'm going to have to leave that because I'm trying to show the param menu. And as I stretch this across, you're going to take a look, and we got params, math sets, vectors, curves, surfaces, meshes, intersections, transformations, and display. Not this display, don't confuse it for that. I'll try sorting that out as we get into it. The rest are plugins. The only plugin here that I've actually downloaded from Food for Rhino, and I would suggest putting into your components folder over after you do a download, you have to go to special folders into components, and you'll have to drop in all the little tiny plugins that you ever wanted. Once they're in that file, you might have to go into one, go into properties and click down here. If it says it's blocked, you'll have to unblock it. But you'll see that on enough tutorials. I'm not here to teach those tutorials. That's it. Grasshopper's here. It's going to shrink those little bit of text at the top. I usually pull it over so it's covering up this, and I can see usually a perspective or the top window. Pretty good with that. And once again, that little tool, set your standards, do your zoom extends all. You can put it into anything you wanted rendered, even though I did suggest that I leave mine in technical. And if I can work in perspective, I will. So perspective and shaded seems to be the way I like to do that. So onward, here we go. Params. I have brought in every node under the geometry menu and put it in this first group section. I've got it in a three-tiered system to those that I use often, those that I don't use too often, and those that I've never used at all. And as you get in here, you'll realize I haven't used the twisted box container or the plankton mesh container, but I have used a component. We'll talk about that in detail afterwards as well. I'm not sure what that's doing there. The next one, as you go over, you'll see that that jumps into the primitives, that jumps into the inputs and utilities. We'll cover those all in detail. So what I'm doing is selecting the ones I use often, and you'll see that they are basically, with this bifocals tool enabled, you'll see that it pops up all the names of these things. So you can set your display to drawing icons, drawing fancy wires, and drawing full names, which is something that will come into play with containers a little more often than this. That said, I'm going to take all those ones that are on the far right and just do a quick copy of them. So what I did was I just selected them. You have to select inside your group, and then you hit Control-C, Control-V, and you can do a copy. The groups sometimes confuse that. And I brought them over here. And how a container works is exactly that. There's a point over there. Here's my container. It's in the Rhino window. And I can go over here and I can say set one point, and I might have to say set one point and then go over and select that point, and there we go. I can now take that piece of geometry, go to my visibility, hide it, and I have a magic, assuming I did do that. Oh, I mean, you have to make sure you're not in a Rhino command to do it, but there. I hid that little piece of geometry. I can bring it out again. I can hide it again. But once I have it ghosted, into that form, then it's totally parametric and can be moved here. So if I was to update that point or that curve, and I'll show you in a future case, that has been registered. That is now a point that I am going to show you two other things, panels and param viewers. Basically, it's like making a railroad track. And if you could run your railroad track together, you can see I have one reference point in there with its indices and its list numbers. And I also have one piece of data with one item on that branch, which happens to be, and you can always go here and do a draw tree and then see you have one item on one branch. Actually, it'd be several items on that branch, but right now, if we go back to the param viewer, you'll see we have one item at the end of that one branch. It is very important to get into data trees and getting into data items and understanding your lists and what's coming in and out of these nodes. So that's already 3-4 minutes in. We better keep moving. So let's center here. Let's grab here. Let's go over, select one curve, select that curve, and there we go. We can go back to this curve now. We can pop it into hidden, and now we have a reference point. We have a point that's in Rhino, and we have this one in Rhino. And actually, I think that little object's still not hidden yet. There we go. So you got the point that turns blue, and the grasshopper items are orange, and there's nothing else physically there. Let's go down. Well, let's just do a quick check. Move down this. What's nice is you can grab it, slide it down, tap Alt, and it'll copy it. And there it goes. And you can plug in your next one. You have one reference planar curve. Tells you exactly what's going on. What's very interesting, and I do want to get into this, is I can grab a couple of control points and pull that up, and then all of a sudden that's not a planar curve. And that makes total sense because I took it off the plane. Grab this, drag down, tap Alt, and plug it in. What do you got? You got one branch with one item on it. Always understand your param viewer. Get here before you begin anything. What's nice, and I will go back, is you can take that point and you can say internalize data, and you can take internalized data, and now you're not dependent on a Grasshopper. You're not dependent on saving 3DM files. Over here, you can actually just save your GH files, and they will show up, and whenever you come into one of these, you can extract, and there you go. You extract whatever point was there, and if you want it back into Rhino, you hit bake, and you put it on a layer, and boom, you got a piece of geometry that's back on the layer. And there it is. I got a curve there and another curve there because they were both in hiding. So I'm going to pop it back into hiding, and we have two curves in hiding. Let's keep moving on. I have a boundary representation, which is called a BREP. I'm just going to use a little box for that. I'm going to right-click, set one. You can see you can set multiple, but set one, choose the box. Boom, it's selected. Take your box, and you can see I can start to move it. As I move that box, it updates, but I also can hide that box. And there it's gone, and I have a BREP that can go blue when I've selected it and want to do things with it. Once again, select the two of them, slide it down, tap Alt, boom, what have you got? Know what you got. You got a reference boundary representation. You have one piece of data at the end of one branch. Same thing, building a mesh beforehand. I can go in here, I can select one mesh, and there we go. It's registered. Grab your mesh, move it around, change it. And what's nice about a mesh is you can hit Control-Shift and Rhino, grab a few of these ends, bend it up, and boom, you've not only moved that piece of geometry as you hide it, you, there we go, hide that piece of geometry. You now have it registered in blue. If you set your setting to that, it's a nice little tool up in File, going down the preferences, and then you can change these colors by selecting on and right-clicking and change whatever colors you want for document materials and default materials. I choose the orange and blue because it's just complementary and it makes me feel really, really good. All right, we're above 6 minutes. Let's just go on and do a surface that I did. Same way, you can select it beforehand. It sometimes works in glitches, and there you go. It's internalized. Take a piece of geometry, hide it. Now you got your surface that you can go into and do all these types of edits to it. And once again, a boundary representation, which I took a box and I took a cylinder. I think I might have showed that in the last one. I did a Boolean difference, which you can all program into this. You can bring in a cube and a cylinder and do the same thing. Keep in mind, Grasshopper is a subset of Rhino. It's smaller than it. So if you don't know anything about Rhino, in my opinion, learn Grasshopper and work up to the command lines and what you need, because everything that you're doing over here is technically being scripted, and you're writing a program that you never see in a history of the command lines as you see what's going in there. So you can see everything that I've done. Well, I'm basically writing script, but the computer's doing it for me. Over here, I'm writing node script. There's the geometry. Select it. Select one piece, and boom, it's referenced. Get rid of that geometry. And, of course, all the geometry is there if I need it. It's not there if I don't want it. And now I've got everything registered in containers. And let's just grab a little tiny little shift here, Alt. And let's just go down and see what we have in this one. Obviously, it's data with one branch, but you've got a boundary reference boundary representation. You have a reference surface, and you have a reference mesh 16 by 9. So that's it. That's a nice way to begin. You've gotten in, you've gone into the param viewer, you've gone into geometry, you've seen everything that's here. Well, the ones that I most commonly use. And we'll take that whole group of little tiny examples that are very basic with the param. Nice little tool here is to grab this, space them all. You space them all differently. It gets them all in order. You can grab these guys. You can do the same. You can put them all in the center and space them out equally. And then you can get rid of that little one. If you remember, I extracted that and I didn't need it there. All my data is there, and I don't know if all my data is internalized, but I am going to internalize it when I'm done my code. So I am not dependent on making anything again in Rhino. Very exciting little techniques, and we'll be going on to primitives and looking at these numbers and what can be used over here. Incredible scripting language. So let's grab this one and kind of in a more pleasant way. The bifocus is the top unit. Hit group, and then go back in, click on the group color, change it to something that makes you pleasantly happy. Ugh, I'm not that happy. Yeah, I'm about that happy. And there you go. Have fun, enjoy yourself, and we'll keep moving on. Thanks for watching.